thank you all for coming along. We put together this event because we found that wholesale and retail, there's quite often a dialogue that's not going along, which is how can we actually work together to sell more products? Because the more products retailers sell for suppliers, the more they're going to order, which means you make more money. And if you can create a relationship between the supplier and the retailer that's mutually beneficial, then not only do both those businesses win, but usually customers win as well. So with the economy tightening, and I'm sure you've already seen this, and I was at a panel earlier on this year and they were talking about when the next economic downturn was going to be, and they actually predicted the end of this year. So I have to say from experience, I think it is going to get a lot tighter, which means you're fighting for that really, the ever-shrinking share of your customers' disposable income. So whether you're a supplier here today looking at how you can create relationships with your retailers, or you're a retailer thinking, actually I really want to get more from my suppliers, hopefully tonight we can answer a few questions for you, and once we go through the panel, we'll also open the floor to questions from each of our panelists here. And I just wanted to jump in, this is really pertinent. I have a paid membership group for retailers, and this question came up just this week, which was, I'm looking for a reality check. Does anyone have suppliers who constantly put big sales on their retail site when their retailers, i.e. me, have invested a heap of cash in their brand and also in things like expo fees to sell their products? And this has happened the day after. So they seem to be constantly in sales mode for the last 4 months, and they've completely dried up all of the customer base. So if you're a retailer, that probably sounds familiar, and if you're a wholesaler, maybe this is not you doing this, but you've probably seen other wholesalers doing it. And from my experience, this generally happens because someone needs some cash flow. No one discounts unless they need cash flow. So trying to find ways that we can work with retailers to actually free up that cash flow and to keep the supply chain going for everybody's benefit is what we're hoping to talk about here tonight. So let me just introduce you to the panel. Those who weren't at the Sydney Retail Festival today, I'm Salena Knight, I'm a retail strategist, and I work with independent retailers to help them scale. So I work with product-based brands and I work with independent retail stores to implement strategies, whether that's marketing or growth hacking, to help them make more money. Because at the end of the day, money shouldn't be a dirty word. If we make more money, we can have more impact. It means you can buy Thai from your local Thai food. You can send your kids to a different type of school. The money is a circular economy. So the more money you have, the more lives you can actually change. And that's the way I like to think about it. Next up we have Chana from Alan Monk, and she's a design and e-commerce specialist. She helps small and medium enterprises and product designers to build their brand online, providing strategy, online store design and implementation services. And for the who are interested, Chana also recently created a thing called the Shopify Women's Network. We're all big Shopify fans up here. Next along we have Naomi, and we brought her on to be the reality check, like the words of wisdom, because Naomi is the e-commerce and digital marketing manager from Elizabeth Richards School Supplies. Naomi's actually responsible for their digital marketing strategy, and the great thing about her company is they are wholesalers and they're also retailers. So I feel that she can give us a little bit of advice from both sides of the fence and how that works. And on the end, we have Jules Buckland. She's the project manager for Totem Design, and that's a boutique retail design agency with over 20 years experience in the retail sector. And they have a really strong focus on creating in-store environments that offer your customers the experiences they need. And we talked about experiences again and again and again on the panels today to keep those customers engaged and coming back. And really, when it comes to customer retention, I think a lot of brands actually forget that part. We are so busy chasing new customers that we actually forget it's way cheaper to sell to the customers that we already have. So thank you, ladies. Let me jump straight into the questions. So the first one I have is, and I'll start with you, Chana. What are the biggest obstacles that retailers and suppliers have when working together?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Can you hear us loud and clear? Perfect. So Probably the main thing from my angle, because I'm helping retailers get their products online, is good content. So it becomes a conversation of the designer or the wholesaler actually providing good written content and photography so that the retailer can actually represent the brand online. This can also be used with any kind of marketing efforts that you use. It's just critical that the designer or supplier provides this as a foundation for the retailer to be informed to sell the product range effectively.
That was actually something we were just talking about just before, was having those digital assets so that when somebody markets your brand, they're actually reflecting the values that you want to reflect. Because if you're not giving great images and even great marketing swipe file, like how do you want somebody to portray this information? Then the retailer's just going to sway it to the way that they want to see it. And that's not necessarily the best light for your product. So this is what we were just talking about, creating that suite of content, whether it's the online content, whether it's digital images, what do we call it? Graphics, not my thing. Having those available, that is going to set you apart from the other companies that just aren't. So Naomi, you're luckily you can be in both sides of the fence. So how do you think how do you think those obstacles are affecting the wholesalers and the retailers? What do you think the big hurdles are that they have to face?
Well, to go back to something you said right at the beginning about wholesalers discounting just as retailers are promoting their products, I'm afraid we have done that. And that is definitely a tension between all wholesalers and retailers, because wholesalers do it for a variety of reasons, including cash flow, as you said, but also excess stock or wanting to roll out the next thing after that. But what we always try to do when we do offer those sales is we never discount it to the level we give our retailers. So we try to leave them, for example, if we give 40% margin to our retailers and we have a sale, we'll maybe discount by 20%. So we try to leave it so that they can have a little bit of room to sell as well.
Who wants to delve into that conversation a little bit more?
So I do think that is one of the trickiest relationships, that you struggle from both sides, as the wholesaler and as the retailer.
Yeah. Should we jump into that conversation a little bit more? No? Yes? No? Nobody wants to talk about that. Okay.
I think how we try to counteract that is we don't do it very often, and we give them plenty of notice so that they can also...
I think the notice is the big thing.
Yeah, and so then they can also match it with their customers if they want. We make it for a short period of time so they know that it will be over soon, and then I guess we just try to give them as much support in all other ways as we can, in terms of marketing collateral, training, going back to content and giving good content to retailers. We do things like we'll put their brands on our catalogue files and things like that, and we'll print flyers for them. So anything we can do to help them, especially since we've got a marketing team and they might be small, we try to do for them. But I think that access to the customer and discounting is probably one of the biggest hurdles.
I would say it's probably the biggest one for both sides.
Definitely.
So let's just delve into that quickly. You said some of the things that you do to mitigate that. Is there anything that you think that wholesalers, whether it's your company or other companies, could do more of to negate the impact that has on the individual retailers?
Other than what we already do, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think you might have some suggestions. But I will also say it happens to us in reverse.
Yes.
So that retailers will undercut us sometimes, and we don't like that either. And then it becomes a matter of communication, where we will talk to each other and basically say, look, we don't really want this to be a race to the bottom. It doesn't benefit you and it doesn't benefit us. Why don't we sell on quality and value add to our customers versus discounting all the time.
One of the things that came up today on the panel was when you go to a brand's website, and whether it's a retail store or a brand that's selling direct to consumer, is having this instant pop-up that says get 10% off. And we do it because we see everybody else doing it. But what I think we forget is that if someone's first interaction with your brand is actually it's not that great for you to pay full price. Yeah, I don't actually think it's worth full price, so I'm going to give you a discount in order to get you to buy. It's very hard to ever change that mentality from your customer if the first interaction they ever have with your brand is it's a bit shit because I don't think you should have to pay full price. Be strong in your brand, and that's the same with the discounting. Is as a supplier, I think, and it's very hard to get around what works with fair trading, but if a brand's values don't align with yours, they're not doing you any favour by undercutting you.
Well, yes, that's true. But it's market forces, and they feel they have competitors. And we wholesale, we don't have exclusivity deals with people, so we wholesale to many, for example, office suppliers, like Office Max would be a big one. And if the office store down the road sees another office store discounting, they do too. It is people's automatic response, isn't it? But really it's about building relationships and adding value and having that worthwhile brand experience is what protects you from those being undercut. And I think having other products in the mix as well. So, they might be buying that slightly more expensive thing from you, but they're putting other things in their shopping cart as well. So not just being a one-trick pony helps also.
And Jules, you have the insight of helping design in-store experiences. So what are some of the obstacles that you see from that retailer's perspective, getting suppliers to come on board to help, let's say, pad out what the store looks like and change that experience?
So probably the biggest thing is a lot of smaller retailers don't realise that you can go to your suppliers and say, hey, I need help with this. I use an example of Suzanne, the fashion brand. Now I know all the stores are owned by Suzanne, but they do a really great thing where once a month, all of their stores get a lookbook, and it's all of the clothing that's coming into the store for the next month, and they have to merchandise their windows, their display tables, everything the same. So they're getting help from head office how to merchandise, because a lot of people don't know how to merchandise. And I think that there's a really good opportunity for suppliers to do that for their retailers. When you're doing your photos for the website, do a flat lay of your products, send them out to all of your suppliers. They can use them in marketing. They can show them how to merchandise a table with your thing. If you've got a retailer who has suppliers, multiple suppliers, but you're the one supplier who's sending them out awesome marketing ideas, really good ideas on how to merchandise, your stuff's going to be featured better than everybody else's, so your good stuff's going to be sold. So, retailers, don't be afraid to ask your wholesalers for help, and wholesalers get on and do it, be proactive and give them ideas on, what to do.
Again, the conversation we had just before we jumped in, and it really is about building relationships between suppliers and retailers, because it feels like there's a lot of us and them. So as a retailer, you may feel a little bit intimidated or maybe even a little bit pissed off with your suppliers, especially if that discounting, or if you see somebody else running an offer. And as a supplier, if you see the discounting at the retailer's end, I think we've kind of forgotten that we are people selling products to people. Whether you're the wholesaler selling products to retailers who are selling products to the end consumers, don't forget that there is always that element of humanness inside. The person you're selling to, the retailer, is a person, and they're going to feel and they're going to think. So whether you want them to think on the way that your brand's values are, or you just want them to think for themselves, I think that's something you have to set very clear in the relationship right up front. How much control do you want to have over your brand versus how much control do they have over your brand, if that makes sense? Yeah. Okay, so speaking on that leads me to my next question, which is how can retailers and suppliers extend the partnership beyond transactional experience? You can pass.
I'll pass. No.
Pass the microphone.
Can you repeat the question?
How can retailers and suppliers extend the partnership beyond transactional experience?
Right. Well, as you said earlier, it's all about relationship building. I'll just talk about what we do, and we send reps out to our retailers frequently. We run training programs. We send them emails every week with tips and advice. Our customers are buying this at the moment. This is because we deal with the school market and they're dealing with the school market and often they don't understand it. This is what's happening in schools at the moment. So we do try to give them quality information that helps them sell to a market they perhaps don't have a great understanding of. So, yeah.
At the really valid point that a lot of you here are suppliers, yeah? So you have a lot of insight to what is happening to your brand in different types of stores. So not feeling like that is your own proprietary information, like how can you take that information and share it with those retailers to help them sell more of your products? Because at the end of the day, that's what you want them to do, sell more of your products. Because the more they sell, the more money you make, the more money they make, everybody's happy. So Jules, as I said, you have this insight from that retailer's perspective. Are there any maybe case studies or any brands that you've seen any wholesale brands that help retailers to actually move past just I'm buying your stuff to sell your stuff?
I don't know wholesalers as such, I just know sort of how people do it well. But my suggestion would be do things like a little pop-up in-store of your brand. Do a runway show. So say you've got a supplier who's your best supplier. So I'm assuming most people here are wholesalers, right? So sort of, going on that. So you've got a seller who's one of your best. When you've got a new line coming out, give it to them first, 2 nights before it goes to everybody else, and do an in-store runway show, or they can invite their top 100 customers, or there's just heaps of ways you guys can help them stand out to their customers as well, and benefits both of you. I always use the analogy of the big supermarkets, Woolworths and Coles, all the end gondolas. Those companies that have all this stuff at the end gondolas pay a fortune for that. And everything that's at eye level, they're paying to have their stuff at eye level. So what are you giving your retailers to prominently feature your stuff? What are you doing for them to make them want to put your stuff front and centre of their clients? So there's heaps of ways you can do that, like fashion nights, all of those things.
I think she listened to the conversation we had earlier. Because we talked about this as well, for example, say you want to be in somebody's windows. What are you doing to give that retailer stock or point of sale material, posters, props? What are you providing for them? What incentive are you giving them for them to feature your brand? And I can tell you that suppliers aren't doing this. So you guys I charge a lot of money to tell you this, so can I just say you're getting very good free information from the panel and myself. But if you go and do that, can you imagine from a retailer's point of view, if you said, hey, here's my visual merchandising kit, or hey, we're prepared to do an in-store event for you and we'll give you some stock on consignment to do a runway show, whatever that looks like, as if a brand is not going to choose you over the competitors. Because the other people just ship stock out, that's it. Meanwhile, you're actually saying, let's build a relationship. And that relationship can look so different depending on how you want your brand to be perceived, but nobody else is doing it. So just being here tonight means that you guys have got insider knowledge on how you can go, even tomorrow, if you're exhibiting, what can you take away tonight and say to the people tomorrow, here's what we can offer you if you order at the show.
And training too, that's the other thing. One of the most important things, people will go into a shop and they want somebody who knows exactly what they're doing. Think about when you go into an Apple store. You walk into an Apple store and you know that you're going to walk up to someone and they're called a genius for a reason, and they help you. They know everything that's on the shelves. They can pinpoint exactly what you need. Think about how those big brands that do it successfully, how they do it. You might not be able to do everything they do, but you can pull little bits out of what they do and implement those tiny things into how you deal with your retailers.
Versus JB Hi-Fi, where the girl pulls it off the shelf and reads off the side of the box, and you think, I could have done that.
However, they also have along CDs and that staff picks. So they'll say, I listened to this album and it's a mix of this, and if you like this, you'll like this album and all that. So they've still got, there's a personal touch there. They're they're implementing things that make me feel like, oh yeah, okay, well they're just like me and they like that album, so I might like that album, or you know what I mean? So there's little tiny things out of all those big retailers that you can pick and use.
And a lot of these things don't cost money. Like putting a staff pick, it's just a bit of paper stuck to the front of the shelf. Like it doesn't cost anything for you to do that. Naomi, can we just jump back to you, because you said you provide training to your retailers. What kind of form does that take?
We actually will go to their location and with a couple of staff members, and we'll organise it in advance, so they have the whole sales team there or the retail team there, and we'll do demonstrations about the products. This is what it is, this is how it's used, this is how we recommend you sell it, these are the products that people often buy with it, and those kind of things.
These are sorts of things that people would often buy with it. So you have that insider knowledge again as a supplier. What are people buying with? If they're buying more than one of your products, what are they buying together? And then bundling that up and saying, we can put this as a deal for you.
We also give them the terminology. So particularly for the school market, there's a real terminology about how people use resources. So, and it's terminology the everyday person doesn't understand or use. So we teach them all the words. These are the kind of words you need to use to hit that hot button of what will make somebody want to buy this product in that market. So one other thing that actually is done for us, because even though we're a wholesaler, we're also a retailer, and we import a lot of things from overseas, and we will go to conferences and display those products, and the companies from overseas will often give us money towards the conferences as well. And we look very favourably upon that, because it makes what can be expensive conferences affordable. And so, in many cases we've been sponsored by our wholesalers towards displaying their items at conferences as well.
That's a very, very smart way to do it. And even just lightening the load.
Exactly, and it's not a huge spend for them, and we're still carrying the bulk of the load, but if you have a couple of suppliers who have come on board and given you a little bit towards it, as you said, it lightens the load. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, when I used to do loads of expos, is we would actually approach a supplier and say, hey, we really love your product and we would like to feature it on the expo stand. So can you send us a shit ton of stock and we'll just send you back what doesn't sell? Because in reality, the more of your product that's on the stand, the more customers are going to see it and think, wow, there's loads of that stuff. I really should be buying that stuff. Whereas if they can only afford to buy 50 units, what happens when they sell those 50 units in the first day? That's it, your stock's gone. So thinking outside the box to actually, just going and asking. I think that's a big question. Asking your really good retailers or asking your suppliers, how can we work together? Like, what could you give me? What could I give you? What are you looking for from me?
I'm sorry. I would definitely say hustle them, right? Hassle, because I can tell you our retailers hassle us. Can we have this? Can we have that? And we are actually happy to do it. And sometimes we don't realise what it is they need or what would help them personally. And if they ask for it, I can't remember a time we've ever said no. So even if you think it's a long shot, just ask or hustle for it. Yeah, you might get it.
And Jules?
I was just going to jump in when you were saying the expo. The other way that you can do it, if you only sell online at the moment, and your retailers only sell online, there's opportunities now in shopping centres for pop-ups. So you could collaborate with one of your retailers, half and half, and do a pop-up. It's a great way to meet your client base, for them to meet their client base in person, but it's also a great way to test new products, because it's not going to cost you a huge amount. You don't have to fit out, putting ourselves out of a job here because we design the stores, but like pop-ups, and shopping centres are screaming for more and more pop-ups. Like that's their big new push, because they can't get retailers in a lot of spaces. So there are other things, and you can do them for around event time, so Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day. So that's another way that you can work in conjunction with your retailers to find a new market.
I think that's a great point for especially pure play e-commerce brands that they can't get into a shop front. So if you are a pure play e-commerce supplier and you are struggling to break into retailers, having those boots on the ground, like you said, getting that feedback from customers. What are the words that they're using when they come up to your stand? What are the terms that they're saying to what do they turn to their friend and say? Because more and more, even in long tail SEO, search terms, whatever they're saying are words that you should be using in your product descriptions, in your terminology, in your marketing that you're using. And it's so, people pay a lot of money to get that, and you could just be making money out of pop-up. Okay, while you've got the mic, because this is your specialty, when it comes to store design, and I'm going to ask Chana to talk about e-commerce, but you're talking about physical, how can suppliers help retailers to attract and engage customers?
It's probably just following on more what I said with the, sending them marketing materials, sending them ideas to merchandise. That's really the best way you can do it, because you're showing them how you think your products will look best.
What about product choice? Do you think that suppliers should be jumping in to help retailers choose the best products for their store?
A good retailer would know their demographic and should know their demographic, so really they should be the ones leading what's being purchased in reality if they're a good retailer and know that. But it doesn't hurt to have the suppliers obviously say, we want to try this, But I would say a good retailer should know exactly who their market is and what they're doing.
And Chana, when it comes to e-commerce design?
Okay, so your website design should realistically be a reflection of what you do day by day with your brand. So everything visual is playing a song of your typical story about your business. Like looking at the store design itself, like businesses should be looking at how a customer will actually walk into the store and engage with the products. So your role as being a business owner is saying, what story do I want to actually tell here, and how can I take customers on a journey so they feel that they are actually experiencing the products to their full capacity. And I think this is where wholesalers can really chip in and kind of make some recommendations about how certain items will actually play a part in telling that story with other items. So then it's a matter of translating that onto your online store. Part of the purchase, it's always a bit of a pain point because people will either find too many steps when they go to put something in the shopping cart. So you've got to think about your consumer. Why is your consumer there? So recently I put together a website for a craft brewery, not the Rocks, but another one. And the main purpose of their website was actually to tell the story of the culture of the beer. Now they're a certified B Corp business, so they do a lot for sustainability, the environment, and have a really large cultural responsibility for the community. So for them, it wasn't about selling beer. For them, it was about selling that story and engaging with their customers. So buying the product is the byproduct of those people engaging with the brand. So with that experience of designing that online store, we took the customers through this progression of this is our brand, this is our community, learn a little bit about the process. The process is interesting because they make beer locally and their waste from their beer making process is actually given to the farmers to feed their cows. So they're keeping the culture and the community alive with that. And as a byproduct, you're getting great beer. So you buy the beer second, and that's where the e-commerce comes in. It's facilitate it so it's as easy as possible to buy that product, but the content was the first priority in this example.
And I think getting that consumer buy-in is so important, especially if if that first point of contact with your brand is online, or if you are pure play e-commerce, because you don't have anyone else to tell those stories for you. So using those examples is, how are you going to tell the story? Do you have any fashion brands that have done that well? Or do you know of any fashion brands that do that well?
So they're educating the retailer to sell effectively. So you need to make the retailer your biggest fan, because if that retailer doesn't love your product, it's going to be really hard for them to actually sell it. So that's why it's so important to have education, resources, go in and provide as many things as you possibly can so the retailer can actually sell your product. And if you're a designer, educate that client with particular terminology and sell them the story of that brand and why it's important to that consumer, because they will become your biggest fan. They're living, breathing and talking about your product to every single customer that comes in the store. And it's the same with the marketing and what's on the website. So the website is just a reflection again of what you're doing in your physical store. and it's a harmonious experience. So, visually, the brand colours, the style, the planning of how the website's all put together, and just really well-written content.
I was going to say, the brand that I think do this really, really well is a brand called Chubbies in America, and they make short shorts for men, and they live and breathe. So at Chubbies, their tagline is "We're for the weekend." So their whole brand is built around having fun on the weekend and living your life like the weekend. And if you don't subscribe to their newsletters purely for seeing what they do well in marketing, I highly suggest that you do. And then we can go back to that whole the purpose that's the big buzzword at the moment. And brands like North Face and Patagonia, they really understand how to put that brand story out there and to get you to buy in. Adventure brands do it well, and sports brands tend to do it really well. So don't just think about the fashion industry, see what other brands are doing and how can you take that and implement the concept behind it inside of your own business. Okay. Big question, maybe this one is for Naomi, but exclusivity, pros and cons.
Okay, so as a wholesaler, we don't have exclusive deals with retailers. So obviously our strategy was to get our products out to as many retailers as possible. So that was a strategy we've taken. Obviously, that's what suits our brand and our vision. But I think if you want to have a special high value product, you want to create a product that's special and a little bit rare, high quality, prestigious maybe, then of course it's better to have exclusive retailers that match that brand. So I guess if your brand is really high quality, you would want a retailer that is just as high quality and reflects your brand. So I think that all depends on your strategy for your brand. That's about it.
Okay, and I will finish up with asking, what piece of tech do you absolutely love that you can't live without?
Plug for Shopify. We are Shopify Plus merchant, and we've been using Shopify for many years, and I'm a massive Shopify advocate. But to put it in the context of retail and wholesale, we do use the wholesale channel on our Shopify site, and that has been a real bonus for our retailers. So when they log into our site, they see their own personal pricing plan, they see all the products, the visual images of the products, they can see live stock updates, there's only 5 left, or there's 10 left, or it's out of stock. And we found that information was really critical for them. They were always wanting to know, how much stock do you have? How much longer will I wait for stock? If I can't get this colour, can I get that colour? So having it all visually right there in one place online has been a massive improvement in the service we offer our resellers.
Well, that drastically impacts the retailer's buying decision.
Absolutely.
If there's only 5 left and I want that product, I will buy it now.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that implemented on your website, maybe that's something that you can take away from tonight and go, maybe that's what my retailers are looking for, because there's a whole bunch of FOMO out there. Retailers have it as well. There's only 20 left and I want 30. Of course I'm going to buy now.
It's not even just FOMO, it's just kind of and allowing them to be organised.
Yeah.
So knowing that they might have a space here on this rack, they want to fill it, what can they put it in, what can they put in there, or they can see that red's all out but maybe they want green. It just gives them options, and they can make that decision in the moment and move on to their next job.
Yeah.
They're not messing around having to call you and things like that. Because they're busy people.
Yeah. And the easier you can make that buying decision,
Right.
They're going to buy now. Yeah. Jules, what's your app that you can't live without?
Can I just address one thing about the exclusivity thing? You were saying that you want as many suppliers, you want to get your product out. There's still a way people can do that, wholesalers can do that. There's a lot of stores that do it well where, say you've got an item and it comes in 10 colours, but you've got one premium colour. Just offer that premium thing to your best retailer, and on the website and all that, they have to be directed to that one retailer who sells that one product. So, or whether it's a package where you get a candle and perfume to get whatever you're selling, have one premium thing of that range and give it to your best retailer. That's a great way to be exclusive, but not exclusive as well.
And I think not having this whole fear-based mentality that you are in competition with your retailers. So not saying, but if they have the pink one and I don't stock the pink one, I'm going to lose my customers. Because without the retailers, for the majority of the people here, you are at the retail festival to get retail stores and e-commerce stores to buy your product. They're acting as your agents. If you don't have them, then you have to work 100 times harder to get your product out there. So if a retailer has 1,000 people that come into their store every single week, that's 1,000 people you don't have to try and find because they've found them for you. So don't get caught up, that's probably my biggest piece of advice is don't get caught up in but I'm taking away from my own business, because a great retailer will promote your brand better than you can promote it yourself. What's your app you can't live without?
Mine's my phone.
Your phone.
So, obviously, I spend a lot of time with Shopify, but firstly about Shopify, I think it's a brilliant platform for businesses to get on because it's easy and accessible to use, both from the supplier and the retail perspective as well as the consumers. Now, Shopify has the ability to scale as your business scales. So there's some brilliant tools through the app. The App Store that enable you to actually upsell your products. So if there are particular recommendations that you want to refer on for a particular style, you can utilise that. And another thing I've been enjoying at the moment is subscriptions. So if you've got something that's quite common for people to buy on a regular basis and you want to encourage that regular purchase, a subscription's an easy way to automate, save time and be relevant with your businesses. Now I'm seeing wholesalers doing this with their retailers as well, because retailers are very time poor. So quite often their stock in store will run out, and when that happens, they're not going to pick up the call.
I was guilty of that.
They're not going to pick up the phone to their suppliers and say, hey, I need so much more. So I think it's really important for wholesalers to think, how can I automate as much as I can with the process and get more products out to my retailers as efficiently as possible. Now, with that in mind, wholesalers need to also know that it's so important to still get on the road and have that face-to-face contact with their retailers. So I love automation. I think tech solves a lot of things, but I think this is really what's going to happen moving forward, is that the businesses that are going to survive are the businesses that are personable and engaging on a regular basis with their retailers on their supply chain.
So follow on from that, my favourite app when it comes to business, and one that I think if you know me, I've probably said to you 4,322 times, is Klaviyo. So Klaviyo is an email service provider, and it integrates with the big brands, so Shopify, Magento, and WooCommerce, and it has its artificial intelligence inbuilt with an email service provider. So it will actually track with a pixel on your website customers' buying behaviour and browsing behaviour, and then with literally a click of a button, the email that it sends to you is different to the email that I get based on what we looked at. And you don't have to do anything different. You just press a button that says, do you want to personalise this email? And it will do it for you. And as a consumer, that is expected in today's marketplace. You can no longer just send out what we used to call an email blast. If you're sending the same thing to everybody, you're about 2 years behind what's currently happening in retail. And it's not expensive, and this is one of the things we talked about on the panels today, is you guys have access to so many of these apps now that 18 months ago, only the likes of Maya could afford. But nowadays, it's $20 a month, it's $30 a month. It's just being out there, being aware, and knowing what your customers are looking for and saying, hey, how can I give them what they're looking for in the easiest possible way? So I think I might just open up to the floor to questions. If you've got questions about e-commerce design, wholesale and retail, or in-store design, just let me know and we'll throw a microphone your way, or you can just shout it out. Or marketing.
I'm tight now.
question is, in the early days, how did you find your retailers? I know that probably now is word of mouth, but most of us are here studying, and as you said, go out, walk, knock the doors. But apart from that, do you have any other ideas that we can get those retailers?
No, well, from our point of view, we were quite well known in the market that we were in. So, and we had sales reps, so we were able to send them out, and we were knocking on the doors of people who were looking for extra products, or they were looking for something different to add to their range. So, it hasn't been too hard for us to retailers.
I actually have a really great download that's called How to Get Your Product into Stores. It's free, salenaknight.com/product. But one of the things is, first of all, just understanding who it is you want to sell your product. So a lot of the time, it's just a blanket, shoot and hope that somebody takes your product up. But think about your time and their time. So if you have 20 people who are on your list of that highly coveted, if I could just get my brand into this store, I would be so happy. Find out what it takes to get into that store. So I have one client who really wanted to be on Nazi Warrior Eco Store, Nourish Life. She was knocked back 5 times. And then we started working together, and she actually went back to them. It took a lot of balls, and said, why? And they told her, and it was really simple stuff. We don't like your branding. We don't like the bottle. We don't like the packaging. And so she changed all of that stuff because she thought, well, if they don't want me, then maybe that's the exact same thing that's stopping me from getting into other stores. So she changed all of that, and within 4 weeks, she was stocked in that store. So it's understanding what they're looking for, and maybe changing what you're doing right now. But it is also just persistence, because you might contact me as a retailer today and I don't need your stuff, and contact me again in 6 weeks, and maybe I don't need it then, and maybe I don't need it in another 6 weeks. But 6 weeks after that, you hit me at the right time, and maybe I've let another brand go, or maybe 20 people have just happened to ask me about the thing that you sell, and you happen to call me at the right time. So don't give up, because it might take 20 goes to get your brand into a store, but most people give up after 3. So if you're going past 3 contacts, then you're probably doing so much more than other people. But it does come back to everything that we talked about here, is having good imagery, having content, having a differentiation point, and then saying, why is your product a good fit for their store?
And make it easy for them to stock it. So walk in, if you're going to a physical store, walk in and go, I think you do swimwear, correct? Yeah, walk in with all this gorgeous imagery and posters and go, if you give me that little spot for a month, I'll come in and merchandise it and I'll set it all up. You make it easy, so they don't have to do anything. They don't have to think about it. It's all there. You've made it easy. You're already one step ahead of half their other suppliers that are in their store.
And things like, if it's swimwear, how do I merchandise? Are you going to give me beautiful hangers, or do they come on plastic hangers? How does the way you present your product tie in with the brand that I, as a retailer, am trying to give to my consumers? Because maybe plastic hanger is literally the thing that's stopping you from getting into that store, because plastic looks tacky and they don't want to be associated with tacky. I'm not saying that yours is, I'm just giving you an example. Questions?
So I was going to say, just consider collaboration as well. There might be some other brands that have a similar custom base to yours, and you could almost piggyback and share marketing or resources together. So when you're on a trade show, you might actually want to share the exhibition stand with that other supplier. They're not selling swimwear, but they're selling something that is exactly, yeah. So I'm seeing more and more trends of this happening, where these businesses are collaborating both in the exhibition space as well as, like recently I met a man who's sharing a website with 3 other businesses, which is a really interesting way of approaching it. So one, it's a cash flow thing because you're not spending as much on an independent site, but you're getting 4 times the amount of traffic coming to the website because you've got so many extra people in the database that have a similar want or need from cross-referral of the products.
I think that's very valid too, in the sense that, just talking about sharing expo space, is if a retailer can see how your product sells well with something else, it makes it so much easier for them to translate that into their store. Whereas if they haven't had swimwear in their store before, they're sitting there thinking, so how am I going to market this? Do my customers actually want it? How am I going to merchandise it in the store? Where am I going to put it in the store? If I get swimwear, do I need to get towels, or do I need to get sunglasses, or do I need to get sunscreen, or will this be a stem? They have 50 obstacles in their head to get your product in. So even addressing some of those could be the thing that gets you over the line. Anyone?
So I'm a fashion agent. I deal with swimwear, footwear, fashion accessories. So I know. So as an agent, I think for you need to know who your audience is. Who do you see yourself benchmarking with? Okay. So for the likes of, I've been knocking on doors for Seafold and Sunburn for years and years and years. Okay. All retailers only have so much space in their area. Okay, so to bring on a new brand has got to be 110%. Okay, they need that brand. So your Instagram, everything that you guys have spoken about, your Instagram, everything needs to be good for imagery. Collaborate, doing a pop-up shop, going into a centre, just having a space where you have there is an exposure, but you need to know who your audience is. You need to, so you've got so much product out there. You've got the likes of Baku, you've got the likes of Jets. They are the ones that are dominating the industry at the moment here in Australia. And they're out there in Miami Swim Show. They're there at the French. Those places. So you really need to know who you want to sell your product to. Is it boutiques? Is it swimwear stores? Swimwear stores are dying at the moment, unless it's Sunburn, unless it's swimwear galore. You need to find out. Like for instance, Pam Pam down in Double Bay, she's closed down. She's now going online. She's been there for how long? 3 years, 4 years. She buys stuff that's international product, but really she should be focusing on local. That's the thing. So
that will give her the niche.
That will give her the niche. So I knock on so many doors, but you need to be persistent. I've been selling swimwear for 5 years, and to get into Sunburn, it's you need to have the right product at the right time, and it's the same. It's just what Salena said. You could be there 6 weeks, another 6 weeks, 6 years, whatever. You've got to knock on the door, and it's got to be, you've got to know what the market is. So collaborating is a good thing. Knowing who, even collaborating with someone that deals with, swim bags or whatever it is. Or something, if your product is recyclable, or, you need to go with something that's that tells that story. I think that's really important.
And do you really want to be in Sunburn? Because you need a really good margin to be able to afford to do that.
So it depends on who you want to focus on. Are you going into boutiques, or do you want to go into more of the chain stores?
And what can you afford?
Yeah, do you want to go into Myer, David Jones?
Yeah.
And does your swimwear have a story behind it? Is it made by women in the Amazon rainforest out of twigs? You know what I mean? Like, if you've got a hawk, use it. You know what I mean? Like, is it made in Colombia?
Yep.
Yeah. Is it made in Colombia? What's your hook behind your swimwear that makes it different to the 10 other brands of swimwear? Yeah. Is there a recyclable component? Do you give a portion to charity? What's your...
The story is the thing. Any other questions?
So we are here with a sustainable cashmere brand. And now you were talking about pricing and discounting before. So we have just been struggling a little bit with like how to set the pricing, because one of our values is that we want to make this more sustainable option of clothing like available for people. But at the same time, as you're talking, that we also don't want to make it too cheap. So how to find this balance between like making it like affordable for many people, but at the same time have our standard as this is a luxury brand.
Why do you want to make it affordable?
Stand out, be expensive, be proud.
It's a really good question though. Why is being affordable a very important factor for your brand?
For our brand, this what we are going into. We are trying to promote more sustainability in terms of fashion, since the fashion industry is one of the most polluted factors today. So the whole idea about our brand is to create this option, and since sustainability is becoming more popular in the fashion industry, but it's still not so huge. So to create like awareness of this also for example young people who maybe not have the budget for going and buying a sweater for $300, $400, $500, we also want to like make our segment a little bit wider.
Have you ever heard of a brand called Nadam?
Yes.
They do affordable fashion and they do it really, really well. But their whole brand is about the story and how they've cut out the middleman in the cashmere industry. So that's my question to you. That was what I was thinking is, why is affordable important? And if it is that important to you as a brand, that needs to be your story. And that's what they base their whole brand on.
Yeah, we are very inspired by that brand.
Does anyone else have any tips?
You work this in. Okay. I think to find who your customer is will help you set that price point, because there's this perceived value over what something costs and the value it delivers. So if your product's too cheap, people will doubt that it's real cashmere. They will also doubt that it's been ethically produced and that's sustainable. So it's this kind of fine line. So I think it's a matter of doing a little bit of a case study and understanding the consumer a little bit more and then tailoring that price point.
So good. I've got a really good example of that in our stores. So we sold wooden toys and they were ethically made and sustainably produced, and I knew the guy who designed them, and his whole thing was affordable wooden toys for all kids. And we had this wooden windmill, and it was like a stacking toy, and it spun around and everybody loved it. But the retail price was $19.95, and we couldn't sell them because people were like, it can't be that good if it's only $20. Because you told me it's ethically made, you told me it's been made, there was a whole story behind the process that was made, and we used to tell the story when we sold the product. And I was like, but it looks good, and if it is that good, it's going to break. It's only $20. So we actually put the price up to $40, and we could not keep the product on the shelf. It would just sell out, because the value of the customer was in the association. They valued it more at $40 than they did at $20. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's not necessarily about the cheapest price. It's what Chana said, which is what do they value?
Crazy complicated. So I agree to your point. It's that perception of what exactly do you sell.
And I think we can't forget, if you ever underestimate the power of this, think about buying travel-sized shampoo and conditioner. You pay more for the bottle of 50 mils than you do for a 500 ml bottle. But people are paying for convenience. It's the same with things like HelloFresh. You can buy all those ingredients separately, but they're paying for someone to deliver it to the door. If you buy on Uber Eats, it's going to be more expensive than when you went to the restaurant and ordered it yourself, because they have to put their margin on to it. But you will pay that extra 20% because you can't be asked to get off the lounge. So it's not your job to tell a customer what their values are. It's your job to find out their values and translate that into the product and how you market the product.
And don't impose your idea of what's expensive onto your customer, because you've already ruled out a whole subset of people because you're conditioned to think something's a price point. But Ferrari doesn't apologise that they sell cars more expensive than Toyota. There's a market there for everybody. So You know, if your product is worth that and you've got a story and there's a reason you're going to ethical fashion and it costs that much, don't apologise for it. Charge it. There'll be a market for it. And you'll be surprised, you know, if you're saying that you wanted to capture, you know, the younger generation that are now becoming more ethically aware and all that, they will save up and buy. And there's also a cash to it as well, you know, like the whole people that buy Louis Vuitton bags or whatever. There'll become a group of people who buy your product because there's a certain perceived value behind it, and I look good because I'm wearing this, you know.
The aspirational status.
Aspirational side,
And they're generally the people who buy when your product's on sale. So don't ever discount those people. Don't ever discount those. Good pun. Don't discount those people as brand advocates because they might love what you sell, but maybe they can only afford to buy it when it's on sale. But it doesn't mean they're not going to tell every person in the room how fantastic your product is.
How do you actually stand up and say like, no, I'm not gonna give you exclusivity? You know what I mean? It's like,
so that happened to that client I was just telling you about that wanted to get into Nourish Life. So one of their criteria was exclusivity, and she said no, but they still bought her product. So I think one of the things that you have to think about as a brand is, one, how much are they going to buy? So she said to them, I'll give you exclusivity on that product if you can guarantee me 10,000 units a month. And they said no, and she said, well, yeah, that was the deal. They still bought the product, they still wanted the product. So understand what you need to get out of that relationship as much as what they need to get out of the relationship. 5 kilometres is not very far. So if it's 5 kilometres, I would give someone exclusivity to 5 kilometre radius because that's one suburb. But by the same token, if someone wants a print exclusive, that has to be beneficial for you. So it might be beneficial for you in the sense that you can say, especially, I wouldn't do this unless they're a proven retailer, but you might say, okay, that's fantastic, and I think Jules alluded to this earlier, which was you can give that print to maybe your highest performing store, and then you direct traffic to them. So as a result, not only are they going to sell your product a lot better for you because they're the only person who has it, the byproduct is they get more traffic to their store and they're probably going to sell more of other stuff. So that is a win-win relationship. That is, what can you do to get them traffic and to get them customers? Because very few people will buy one thing. You don't generally buy one thing unless you just set out to buy that thing. So if it comes to exclusivity, have a minimum order. Minimum order is 10,000 units a month, or if it's swimwear, it might be minimum order is 500 units a month, and the minute they slip below that, exclusivity is gone.
I was also going to add, you know, the world's a very big place, so potentially you can reach a very, very large audience of potential consumers, and you could also consider selling on a direct to public. So this real shift at the moment where wholesalers are not exclusively selling wholesale anymore. They are reinventing themselves as retailers as well. So, you know, looking strategically at your business, you might want to have a percentage where you sell wholesale and the other percentage you actually sell direct to public. So this way you can kind of build your brand and own that customer and work with different margins. So there's different methodologies that you can apply to your business.
One of the things we talked about earlier was it's a very small pool of retailers that you have to choose from in Australia. So if you can get out of that small mindset and go, actually, I've got a really great product that will sell anywhere, then think about going to resources like Austrade who can help you export your product. So they run free training courses, they have marketing development grants, they have ways to help you get your brand in front of other people in other countries. So the great thing about that, especially in fashion, is that means you cover 100% of the season. It's something like swimwear, you can sell all year round. You're not just selling, you know, in 4 months of the year. So I think if you haven't already mapped out what you want your brand to look like over, say, the next 12 months, like what's your journey going to be, maybe that's a really great place to start. How many suppliers how many retailers do you want? So if you want 5 retailers in the next 3 months, that probably means you have to approach 50. So that means going, okay, if I want 5, I have to approach 50. So every month, every week, I'm committed to calling 4 retailers or 5 retailers or whatever that number works out to be. It's just pure facts. But if you just say, I want 5 and expect them to come to you, and you don't do that follow-up, and you don't do that collaboration, and you aren't trying to differentiate your brand, you might get one. Because the onus is on you to tell these retailers how great your brand is and how it's going to sell for them. But you have to know what that looks like for you. We all good to finish up? We're going to hang around, so if you've got any questions, feel free to ask us. But thank you so much for hanging out. And if you can please thank my panelists. And thank you so much to Naomi for coming along. She felt a little bit out of her depth talking to you guys about fashion, but I just thought having the both sides of the retail channel, the wholesale channel and the retail channel, she could definitely give us some insights as to what that looks like behind the scenes. So thank you, Naomi. And thank you to Shopify for helping us out, for being here, the Sydney Retail Festival and the Nora Network. If you don't know those brands, everything's a brand to me. If you don't know those companies, please check them out. Nora is the National Online Retailers Association, so if you're in e-commerce, check them out. And if you haven't already guessed, we all love Shopify because it can do so many things. So have
For us. I don't like online shopping.
if you have any questions, feel free to come and hang out with us, and all the good deals are done in the after party, so chat amongst yourselves.